What's up everybody, this is Tucker from MACkite Boarding, and today I have a really fun one for you coming from Omen, one of our shop favorite board companies. We have the SuperMarine 120 liter, the Big Mama. We've had a great reception to the newly released SuperMarine in the 95 and 105 liter sizes. Personally, I find the 95 is one of my favorite parawing boards, light wind wing boards for just those marginal days where you want to make it easy, where maybe you want to ride a little bit smaller wing or a smaller foil and you just need a little bit more board to do that. Or if you're out there teaching somebody has never done this before, the SuperMarine is a great board that you can get into and appreciate as a brand new rider, but also something that you'll grow into and like more and more and more every session. And even as an advanced rider, you're going to appreciate and enjoy what it can do for you on those marginal days. So Greg and I went to the drawing board on the 120 liter. After doing the 95 and the 105 liter, we're like, hey, these boards are great, but we have people that are even heavier that want to learn. We have people that have never foiled before that want to learn wing foiling. We have people that want a bigger board for parawinging and just looking for more stability, more light wind ability, whatever you want to call it. Just needing a larger board than what was on offer for the 95 and the 105 liters. For me, I find this 120 liter is an awesome option for those days where it's super, super crazy light and you just need more length and more efficiency from the board. It's also really nice just to have a bit more stability from a board when you're out there gust hunting. And you might be waiting for that magic gust for 15 minutes or 20 minutes on a really bad day, just cruising around back and forth, kind of making those cuts, waiting for the wind, waiting for that perfect moment. And if you fall in because your board's not stable enough and that perfect bit of wind comes in or that perfect wave comes in, you're out of it, you're skunked. So I've been really stoked riding this board in our Junky spring conditions here, where a lot of times there's almost no waves, very light wind, bigger foils, just needing a bit more board, especially on the parawing, to get up and rolling in those really marginal days. And of course, we want to get out there and test gear for you guys, but the wind always doesn't cooperate or the waves don't always cooperate. So having a board like this in the rig that you can lace up and go test some smaller wings or some smaller foils on a bigger board is really great. So with the 120 liter, we faced some unique challenges in the design that weren't really apparent in the 95 and the 105 liter sizes. We couldn't just scale it up and call it good. We kind of had to go back to the drawing board. So the 120 liter is almost a model onto itself. The dimensions are different than a scaled version of 120 liters. The shape is different. The box placement's different. Really a lot of everything is different about this board. Kind of the general outline is similar. The concept is similar to the Flux and the SuperMarine in the smaller sizes, but the 120 liter is special in that it's getting into that kind of big board category. And while the 95 and the 105 are quite large as well, 120 is unequivocally big board territory, but we didn't want it to feel like a big board. And that's the challenge. When you get into these sizes, you're packing that much volume into a board. It's really hard to make it feel small and agile and fun and efficient. Those aren't words that you're typically associating with a 120 liter board. Usually it's words like slow, stable, easy, chunky, corky, so we're trying to avoid those words in favor of the more fun and exciting ones. Please forgive my pad placement. This was my hack job quickly in a parking lot pad situation. So the production ones look a lot prettier than this and will be longer as well. I just kind of quick slapped this together in a session because I couldn't wait to get it on the water when it came in from the factory. So yeah, so that's the concept with the board. In testing it, I can say I think we nailed it. This has been one of my favorite big boards to ride. It's not quite in the downwind category, but it has a lot of those attributes in terms of low endability and speed on the water and easy takeoff. But it's a lot more stable and user-friendly, less tracky than those boards. And I would say when you're on foil, it's more agile, it feels more surfy. So it's kind of finding that balance between a surfy mid-length and a downwind board, where you don't want to ride an 8-foot board, but you want that kind of easy takeoff, and you don't want to fly a little tiny board that you can't hardly get up, but you want that level of maneuverability and fun and playfulness. It's not going to quite be at the same level there, but it finds that balance really nicely. So what do we do? How do we do it? I'm about to show you. Looking at the outline, you can tell, it shares that DNA of the Flux that's well loved. It is very similar to the Supermarines and the smaller sizes. On the deck, some changes we've made. Obviously, we've made this board longer to give it some more drive, to give it some more speed on the water and efficiency. It's going to also help you stay upwind in those really subpar conditions. Or if you're paddleboarding with this board, it's going to give you more forward drive and projection with your paddle, so you're not just spinning circles all the time, fishtailing. You can actually create some forward speed and momentum with this board. I dare say experienced riders could even paddle this up in flat water if you really know what you're doing, but that's not going to be most people. On the deck here, one special thing we've done that you're not finding in any of the other Omen boards yet is we've done a cockpit style deck. So what that means, if you look at it from the side, you can kind of see it a little better here. Got a little bit of a bulge here in the nose, a little bit of a convex nose to help shed some of that spray, or if you're driving through a wave, it's going to help surface it a little better. It also helps it swing through the wind more cleanly so that the nose has less wind drag on it when you're flowing around and carving around. And then it drops into this cockpit, we'll call it, where the front foot and the back foot are closer to the bottom of the board, closer to where the foil is. So that just gives you an innate sense of where that foil is. It gives you more leverage over the foil. It reduces your center of gravity, lowers your center of gravity, so it's easier to balance. In short, it just makes maneuvering the foil easier. It makes maneuvering the foil more fun and intuitive, and just gives it that surfy kind of small board feel. Really, we find that ratio of width to thickness is really important. So even though it's a 120 liter board, it's not massively thick. It's not like 6 inches thick. We made it as thin as possible so that you really get that small board feel with the connection of the board and the foil, and really helps your perception of where your foil wings are and that rolling moment where you're kind of tipping over, so to speak, on this totem pole. The shorter that is, the faster it rolls from edge to edge, the more intuitive it rolls from edge to edge, and the more leverage you have over the foil to do that. So if you've ridden a smaller foil mast, you felt that before. If you've ridden a narrow or a thinner board, you've felt that before. But then giving the board enough width. It's not a little 18-inch, downwind board that's 6.5 inches thick, kind of like riding a log or a 2x4. You don't have a lot of leverage and control over the foil. You're kind of just pointing it and going with it, and you're kind of along for the ride for a little bit, so to speak. But having a little bit more width to the board with a thinner deck is going to give you more control and easier time on the foil, especially the larger foils like we're riding for light winds, for parawinging and junky conditions. It has more span, more size, more aspect ratio. So having the board give a little bit more control to that makes everything easier, and it raises the level of performance where you can push it, where you feel comfortable pushing the foil through a turn and really manhandling that bigger foil into a more high performance turn. So that allows for that. In the cockpit, we have just a slight concave, and most of it's out here towards the rail. It's really subtle, you almost can't see it, but the main middle section is quite flat, so your feet can lay flat and feel really engaged with the board without feeling, like you're up on two different ramps. But when you get up towards the edge of the rail, You feel it just a little bit more. That gives you more leverage if you offset your stance further for those wider foils. It also indexes your feet, so you know when you're getting towards the rail, when it's getting a little closer to where your foot might start to slip off. You can find yourself in that board without looking down, without even knowing where you are. You kind of feel where you're at. Same thing on the front with this front ramp. You can tell if you're pumping hard and you're starting to slide forward a little bit and you're kind of getting there. It has a little bit of a ramp to push off of, but also feeling that. And then same thing on the back here. You're going to start to feel that lip of the back. If you're starting to slide your back foot back a little too far, you know where you're at on the board. But most importantly, it just gives you that kind of in the board. Your feet are in the board when you're maneuvering from the cockpit. And that really does make these bigger boards a lot more fun and easy and less corky to ride, if that makes sense to all of you. So, getting into the business end of the board here, the bottom, this is going to look quite familiar to all you guys who have seen the Omen boards. Maybe you've ridden them in the past. We have sort of this hold spoon nose. It's not peaked, it's sort of flat in the middle here and then rolls into these nice round low chine rails that create a lot of lift and a real smooth flow into the beginning of the board. So when you're progressing through chop, it's just going to glide through that nice and smooth. There's no hard edges to make the board pinball and bounce around or twist. They're not going to get grabbed by the waves passing under it as easily because it's just so soft up here in the front. It also allows you just to simply turn your hips and point the board. Sometimes you get into these longer boards, longer than 6 feet, and they can get a little tracky, especially if you have hard rails and hard chines that come all the way to the nose. That's like grabbing the water and you're trying to move it and direct it, but you're dragging this angle through the water. Having these soft rails allows you to reposition the board. So those soft rails really give you an easy to use, efficient board that's just smooth through the messy stuff and aren't as tracky. And then having a board long enough, you know, the board length still creates enough drive and speed that you don't need a super tracky board to build that apparent wind, to build that kind of on the water angle. You know, it's got enough length that sort of does that on its own. And then blending into the back end of the board here, you can see those chines stay quite low angle for planability and efficiency, but the angles get a little harder and start to release in the back end of the board because now some of that water is flowing off. You want it to release cleanly so that it creates speed and kind of pulls the water out the tail of the board and creates that kind of boost effect off the tail so that the water's accelerated as it's coming off. It's not getting hung up and wrapping around the rails and creating this extra surface tension. So once you get past the halfway point, now you know that water isn't kind of rolling around the rail. Now it's releasing off of the chine, off of this rail here, and that's why those edges get harder. Gunk on the deck here as they get back towards the tail, and that really creates that more speed coming off the back of the board where you're releasing that water. Now you're not just capturing it and flowing it in through the middle. So you'll notice the box is quite a bit forward on this board being longer. You know, it's designed primarily for wing foiling, parawinging, where you're going to want to keep your feet kind of in the same spot as you're taking off as you are when you're flying. If you've ever ridden a board that you have to change your position once you start flying, you know that that's really difficult and interrupts your flow as you're coming onto foil and creating speed. If you have to do that, it's a lot more difficult to ride. It's definitely going to affect your technique and how quickly you can build speed and momentum. You're definitely going to mess up more often. So we want you to pilot this board from the same position on the water as you do above the water when you take off on foil. So that's why you'll find this box is further forward, because your feet are kind of in the middle of the board. Also, it's got nice long boxes, so whether your foil likes to mount kind of in front of your feet or under your back foot or a little bit behind, you're set on this board. You will find we have inserts. They're hard to see on this one, but right about here, which in relation to the box is just under the back of the box right here. So that works really well for most bigger foils. It's not going to be perfect for everybody, but you can always put on stick-on inserts if you want. Really, I think most people should be riding this board without straps. Bigger boards, you're going to want to move around a little bit more actively on the board. You're really going to want to be able to shuffle your feet for this kind of light wind style and surfy kind of a style riding. But the strap inserts are there if you want one just to help pull that board up onto foil, or if you need a little bit more leverage in a turn with a big wide foil, it's gonna offer that for you if you're more comfortable that way. But I would say the majority of the people should be riding this board strapless for the maximum performance, the best ease of use, and just comfort in general. As with the other Omen boards, we do have our FCS2 fin box here. It comes with a stubby type fin, almost like a wakeboard fin, that you can use to hang on to as a handle if you choose to do that. The other thing it does is it gives the board a little bit more forward drive when the board is on the water. So if you're out there gust hunting and trying to build some speed parallel to the wind, that's going to create some more forward drive from the board. Again, you don't need those hard edge rails. Just put the fin in, you're going to get a little bit more forward drive out of that if that's what you're looking for. That's going to help you stay upwind easier before you come on foil. So if you're just out there gust hunting and you kind of want to feel it out, but you don't want to walk upwind, it helps with that. It's also going to give a new rider a little bit more directional stability and help them to get up on foil easier with less power. So that is a neat option. You can use any FCS2 fin in this, so if you find you want even more drive, even more trackability, you can put a bigger fin in this as well. You can use FCS1 or FCS2 click-in style fins on this, so that's really neat. It's something that no other brand is offering, and I think it's a really elegant solution to help you fine-tune, what you want your board to do. Also, doubling as a handle is great rather than a big dent, big hole in the bottom of the board that creates drag, that adds weight. This is a nice simple solution to that. So, as I mentioned, I've been riding this guy quite a bit lately. We've had a lot of really junky conditions. I've been testing a lot of small parawings. Everybody wants to send me a 3 meter in the spring, and we don't get that much 3 meter weather for small boards in the spring anyway. So I got to get out there on the big mama, the Orca here, and make it happen on the smaller wings. So it's really fun to feel out these light wind boards and these solutions for the less ideal days. And really, the SuperMarine 120 has been a blast. I think it ticks all the boxes for what we're looking for out of a board like this. I would definitely put an athletic new winger on this board to learn and progress on. It is a little narrower than some of the others. It's not 30 inches, 34 inches wide, but I would argue the design of this is more important. You can learn to kind of balance on something unless you just have zero balance at all. If that's the case, maybe you shouldn't be foiling, but maybe you can learn, I don't know. But for anybody that's even a little bit athletic, that has a little bit of balance, I think you can overcome a slight narrower width. It makes it easier to adjust once you do learn to adapt to that and the waves aren't throwing you around as much. A narrower, longer, more centered board is really going to help you more than a wider monster board, because you can imagine you're just bulldozing all of that water with that wide board, and a lot of times they don't have a nice smooth low entry rocker like you get with these. So they're just pushing water, they're just damming up water in front of the board. So having something like this, you can ride with less power, a smaller foil that's easier to control, and just make your overall experience more fun, easy, and then that way you're not going to hate the board that you learned on, you know, within a month. You can continue to progress on it and enjoy and apply it towards, you know, different applications like SUP, like parawing. Maybe you're going to do a little bit of knee paddling on this or whatever. Even foil driving, a big person on a foil drive, this could be a great board for that. So that's that with the Supermarine. If there's anything I could say bad about it, I would say this is a really robust construction as compared to like a downwind board. This is going to be a little bit heftier, a little heavier. It's also going to have more durability. It's going to have more longevity. If you don't know already about the Omen construction, these are made at the apple tree factory with a high density extruded type foam. So the foam on these aren't EPS, they aren't full of air. You'll see you don't have any vent plugs anywhere. You don't need to worry about that. But when you ding them, they don't suck water. In fact, I had one that I was riding actively for about 2 months with a huge gash in it, just as a test, and it didn't pick up a single ounce of weight. I looked at it before and after, took photos. We didn't have any discernible degradation of the core or the structure after that time. So this is truly a board you can buy once and enjoy for a lifetime. I think we can all get on board for that, even if it is that you're passing it to a family member or a friend or reselling it. It's great that they can continue to use the board well beyond your use of it, rather than boards ending up in the trash every 4 to 5 years because the EPS breaks down and the thing's just dead, for lack of a better term. I think there's a lot can be learned in our industry from this type of construction. It allows us to be more adaptive to the needs of people. We don't need to commit to molds and production cycles and things like that that really, you know, slow down the progression of shapes and the performance of our sport. So it's really cool that we can do something like this 120 liter. We don't know if we're going to sell 10 of them or 1,000 of them, but we can throw it out there, meet the need for those people that want a board like this, and have a very specific design that we don't need to commit to for 3 years. So it's fun, and you're always going to see, you know, rolling inline changes as we find things to improve, adjustments to make. And a lot of those things are going to go unnoticed by most people, but it's something we're constantly improving on these kinds of boards. So pretty special stuff. All that to say, if you're looking for a fun, efficient 120 liter board, whether you're a 300-pound rider that just needs the right board for you and this is your performance board, whether you're a brand new rider that's never done this before and you want to invest in something that you know you'll be happy with for a long time, you know that you can hang on to forever and enjoy, it's a great option for that. Or whether you're like me and you're just like, I just need something to get me up, parawinging on the real Junky days, help me ride these big foils and help control them and ride them to the best of my ability in those conditions, kind of make the most of every day. This is going to allow you to do that, as well as play with paddleboard foiling and, you know, whatever else you want to do. It's really a Swiss Army knife kind of a board. It's going to allow you to have fun no matter the day out there on the water, and that's just fun for everybody. So this has been Tucker with MACkite Boarding, and we'll see you next time.